Where would you like to start?
I want to leverage the way children approach creativity and approach play, leverage that for adults in the when they come to create something. I'm finding in both when I'm working with adults in all sorts of environments, whether it's creating media content or actually trying to get them to come to life in any sort of way, they think within very stifled parameters. I have a very strong affinity with children when I write stories for them and work with them. I want to harness what they have and put it out to adults and get adults to start thinking like a kid. That's what I want.
And what's the first obvious step for you with this, to take this think like a kid and turn it into something?
The obvious step is to get in front of um, either small groups or big groups and put this idea in front of them and lay out what that might look like from a very simple step of if I give a task to a group of children and say, "What could this be?" or how would you go about inventing something?" I'm inundated with ideas, and as a demonstration to adults, they would ponder over it every single time and not really come up with much that's outside of really the norm. So being on the stage in front of adults talking about how kids think, I think is the logical first step.
And how long have you known that the obvious next step?
Probably about a year after I started really thinking about this idea.
Uh-huh. So what's the blockage between seeing that as the next step and taking action?
I don't really know what my blocker is. I think it's not knowing what I don't know. And I've looked into platforms to kind of open doors for me to get into businesses or to become known as a speaker. But I haven't really taken it much further than that. I always have the blocker of I'm going to need more time to put that together. I've had this for a long time with all different projects, and it takes me to really focus on something to then get stuck into it. But I know myself that that's not it's not a good enough excuse. It's just there, and I've done quite well of reducing the number of plates that I spin, but I still haven't kind of pushed forward with getting myself onto a stage in front of people to talk about this idea. And I know the idea is good. Whenever I mention it, and I have taken the step of talking about it out loud to people in real life, and the feedback is always, that's really good. You need to do that." But then I haven't.
What jumped out at me, you said about the not knowing what I don't know, and then time being the blocker, I don't have enough time. What strikes me is how out of sync those two excuses are to your whole philosophy of think like a kid.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Very true. And as a follow on from that, I would accept that sometimes I don't think like a kid and I need to.
So let's play with this then. What would the kid that lives within you, what would he do as the next step that would be really fun and explorative and require no preparation? Because when I think about thinking like a kid or being a kid, like they don't plan how they're going to somehow turn themselves into an astronaut in the next 30 seconds. They just start. So I'm curious what this looks like for you through the lens of your own philosophy of seeing the world.
Yeah, they would just they would just do it in whatever shape that took. Um, I suppose I do. I do this in a non-formal sense, and, kids don't see anything as formal, which is why they just do it. Um, I Formally in my house or in kind of, friendship groups, I am doing this, but it's not doing it in front of an unknown audience, for example. So that would be a case of so a child would just jump up onto stage and start doing it. I think it would be a case of finding myself in an environment where people would appreciate this approach and then just getting up in front of them without any kind of, um, without any real invitation or formal process or if someone's paid me to do it. Um, there's lots of places where I could find myself doing that, um, which I absolutely could. So, for example, I run the the school PTA, and that would be that would be a forum where I could say, "Yeah, you might not think this is very good, but you're not thinking like a kid, and this is why we need to do this." So that would be a quick one, and the the school environment is really I love the fact that I'm involved with it because I've learned so much about adults who are parents of children and the way different people think, and it's quite, eye-opening, if not mind-blowing, that they're on a completely different wavelength to their own kids and other parents. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's just there's a disconnect between, um, generations, and it's probably always been like this, but I'm now fully in front of it and can't always understand why someone wouldn't want to do something that's really fun, and, that's where it all comes from. It all comes from, why don't people wanna have more fun? And it's not really difficult, and I want to share that with other people and get them not only do they have more fun and I want them to be happier, but actually it's in a business sense, you'd get a lot more done if you think like a kid, and that's kind of there's all different edges to this, which are all positive.
I'm hearing the disconnect at the moment for you is the disconnect between your philosophy and the sharing and the delivery of that philosophy into the world. So
Mm.
I wonder if from today's conversation, once you've seen that, you'll have different options available to you of how to get this out into the world.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's the classic, strike while the iron's hot kind of, philosophy, slightly differently, but a child, if they want to do something, they will do it, until they're told not to. Professionally, I would do that as well in a without the whole this philosophy, just if it's good, do it now because it's gonna get put off otherwise. So, yeah, it is a case of, getting on with it in my, philosophy. Yeah. And finding the it's not a case of finding the right time and place because the time and place is, this applies always, but in the more formal and I think the more I do this and the more I talk about it, the easier it will become or the more, relaxed, I suppose, I'd be about it. Um, but it's the formal actually, doing this professionally, which needs to happen, and, I guess that will follow on from doing it more and more, but I don't know.
What if it doesn't ever get easier? What if you just start to share this idea in bigger and bigger ways, and the more you share it, the bigger the sharing, but then you're always playing at your edge?
Mm,
I think so often we don't start stuff because we're scared. We're worried about how we'll be perceived or how we'll be received. And there's this notion or this idea that, well, once I get started, that fear will go away. My experience is that the fear never goes away because we're born to expand as humans. So we're constantly pushing our edge. We're constantly pushing at what feels comfortable. So we're constantly feeling slightly uncomfortable. Like, yes, going and like maybe your first expression of this is some form of school meeting or PTA meeting, and that might feel really edgy, and then in a year's time doing that would feel really easy, but there would be a version of sharing it in a year's time that would feel just as edgy as sharing it to the PTA would today. So For me, the question is never about how do I do the thing without fear? It's how do I do the thing despite feeling scared?
One thing for me, and we've spoken about this before, is I actually don't have. I'm not scared of how it's received. I actually don't care, and I think that's obviously now that's a flippant thing to say. I don't mind if people don't agree with me, uh, and I'm very, very happy to be out there in front of people. I think my fear is not getting the chance to do it, I think. Yeah, and I don't know why that is. It's kind of I just haven't even asked. I haven't even sent an email off to say, "Can I come in and talk to your people about this?" Um, and I think that's where my kid mindset comes into it because they don't really care what people think. They're just gonna do it, and then they're happy in themselves that it's the process rather than the outcome, which is what I love. I love that about the way kids play. They play because it's fun, not because they get to show someone what they've done. That's kind of secondary, and it might be a bit nice, but then they'll just destroy it and play again, which is where the great ideas come from. So, um, as we've been speaking, actually, I haven't ever thought about putting this onto a video and just saying it out loud to the internet, and that's something I could certainly do. It's just a case of clicking record and not really caring about what the feedback is. So that'd be quite a bold thing to do, and I could absolutely just do that.
Yes. And there's something in me that doesn't buy the story of I don't care what people think. Because you said earlier that you're already talking about this with your like friends and loved ones and people who get you. You also said that, so I can't remember exactly how you said it, but something along the lines of wanting to find an audience that would receive this well.
Mm.
And my sense is that if there wasn't a fear of what people would think, then you wouldn't have been sat on this for a year.
I think it's the I think it's less the feedback of someone saying, "I don't agree with you, that's rubbish," and probably more there is probably a fear around someone not thinking there's value in it, as in paying for it maybe. So I certainly see this as this isn't a charity project. This is something that's gonna leverage people's businesses and whole approach to creating awesome things. So I think there probably is a fear that someone says, "Oh yeah, good idea. I'm not paying for it." Maybe that's the, um and also I don't I probably don't like being told, "No, don't come in," but I haven't even invited someone to say no or yes. I just haven't asked.
Yeah, so you're protecting yourself from the no.
Yeah, I think so. And I've had this before, and I think this is in my story creation and putting my stories that are for children out into the world. I've had that blocker before of, I know this is really good, and I know when the children get to see it, they're gonna love it, and so are their adults. But I don't hit send probably because I don't want someone to say we don't want it.
If someone says no and someone says we don't want it, what would you make that mean about you?
I think it invalidates me, I suppose, because I'm so sure of myself, sometimes sometimes wrongly, but I'm so sure that I've got a good thing, and I know in my heart that when my target audience see it or hear it, they're gonna like it. But if someone is a blocker in the way, the middle person, I it frustrates me that they're blocking a really good thing getting to the person who it's meant for, and I think that does invalidate me.
And so, is there a belief in you that your intrinsic value is connected to what you do, or the value of what you do?
I certainly feel great if someone else benefits from what I'm offering. Um, and I would say my whole purpose is to make the end user happy. I suppose. That's my reason for kind of existing, is to make the people around me, certainly children, happy. So if I'm blocked from doing that, it makes me unhappy.
Yeah, well, the language you used earlier was that you said it would invalidate me.
Yeah, I was probably trying to find a word. Um, I'm very comfortable in myself, I think. But if someone, it's kind of if someone, it's a lack of respect if they don't allow me to show my wares, I suppose, without really acknowledging it, or it's just a flat no without understanding is what is where my frustration is, and I feel like that's whether that's invalidation or lack of respect, that's what I don't like.
If I'm making a connection, I don't know whether this will feel true, but to see how it lands, making a connection between a lack of like these imaginary middle men or women who are blocking your ideas from reaching the world, and the frustration, lack of respect that you're talking about. I wonder how much of that lack of respect, frustration you're feeling towards yourself by being your own blocker.
Yeah, uh, yeah, I've come across that before, in myself about yeah. No, I can get that, definitely. It's a bit like the way I will speak to myself versus the way I will speak to other people. They don't often marry up, and it's when I question that, that things get back on track. So, yeah, I think you're onto something there. Yeah, thinking like a kid and then also show myself the respect for myself. Yeah, that does ring true.
And what becomes possible for you when you see that?
I just make I suppose it makes things more relaxed, a bit calmer, and certainly invites me to get out of my own way.
And what else do you notice?
Well, it's certainly I think it takes the pressure off, and actually it's not that much and I do know this, it's not that much of a big deal just to put something out and see what comes back. I'm the biggest advocate of doing that if I'm giving advice to anyone else. Yeah, and actually talking to kids, you invite them to do something, give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? I would literally say that most days. So I'm just not necessarily. I'm not saying that to myself. So it makes things easier, easier and more relaxed to just get on with it and do it. And like I say, don't I don't really feel the pressure of what the reaction is. It's the pressure of not getting it, of not having chance to cause a reaction is my issue. And actually, I think the being a bit more relaxed about it and being kinder to myself, getting out of my own way, all of those things, it means it's not as difficult as I might be pretending it is. There are certainly a few things what I could do immediately without any pressure, really.
Well, my sense is that all the pressure you were experiencing was self-created.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So let's ground this and make it tangible. You said there are lots of things I could do pretty much immediately. Name
Mhm.
3, and let's commit to when they'll be done by.
Okay. So I can write for on a social media post. I'm pretty active on Instagram and LinkedIn, but I haven't really taken this to LinkedIn, which is where the people are. So I can commit to writing something on Thinking Like a Kid for LinkedIn within the next week.
Perfect. And then 2 more things.
I can commit to putting something on video on how and why adults should think like a kid on YouTube or LinkedIn and LinkedIn. I've got I've got platforms there. And then the third one would actually be get on a stage and deliver thinking like a kid. What am I gonna time frame for that within the next month?
Cool. So we've got LinkedIn writing, YouTube and LinkedIn video by the end of next week, and then getting on a stage in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. The first two are certainly. I can. No, all of them are absolutely doable. The first two will be easier than the last one.
How does that feel as a place to finish?
That's it's kind of it's good, very good. It's actionable and certainly it accelerates me. It accelerates where I want to go, and it's exciting. It wasn't necessarily what I thought was going to come out of this.
It often isn't.
No, no, it feels really good, very positive.
Great. And then as a way to close, I'd love to hear in your words a summary or of yeah, key insights that you're taking away from today.
I think what's overwhelmingly clear is that I say, when I probably anybody says something out loud and talks something through with someone else, things just bubble up and become so much clearer. So I've been having these conversations with myself for, like I say, a year or more. But actually, when I've spoken to you, it makes things really. It's quite obvious. There's nothing. So there's nothing revelatory that's come out, but it wasn't going to come out unless I actually spoke it through with you. So there's certainly um, there's certainly something in that, in actually talking it through one on one, saying the things out loud to another human being rather than just keeping them in your head, because it just makes a lot of sense talking it through.
Yeah. Yeah, for me the truth is always simmering below the surface. It's always within reach, but we're very, very skillful at distracting ourselves from it and pretending like we don't know or we don't know what the next step is. And yeah, that's what these conversations are for, is to yeah, well, the name of the podcast, return to signal, return to the truth, return to what's obvious.
Mm. I think the truth only becomes obvious when you say it out loud, talk to someone else.
There's no hiding once it's out in the open.
That's it. Yeah, no, it's been very, really, really helpful and insightful, and yeah, exciting.
I look forward to seeing what you create, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you.